So every year we do 2 awards, and one of those is the Lifetime Achievement Award, which we've done, and the second is the Republican of the Year Award. And this year, I have the great honor of awarding Jim McKinney, Republican of the Year. So if you don't know Jim, I don't know where you've been hiding, but Jim knows all about freedom. And I have the pleasure to work with Jim on many different projects. He is a man of honor, a man of integrity. Jim is everything that I think a Republican should want to be. So Jim's had 31 years of service in the military. He is in intelligence. And in 2020, Jim, during the year of COVID, brought out the Patriots. And in case you guys didn't see us, but we were doing road rallies, thanks to also Linda Murphy. But we were out with our Trump flags, and we were waving them with pride because we were running down the I-5 from here to Olympia. And Jim brought us together. He was the chair for the Keep America Great group here in Whatcom County. And Jim stepped up as our leader during the Trump election. So, Jim, thank you for everything you've done. Please come up. Can you guys give Jim an applause? My honor to work Jim, Republican of the Year.
Thank you, Ashley. First of all, I'm pretty humbled to be up here because Ashley, Jennifer, Luann, Kendra, Charlie, there's so many people out here that really worked their tails off this last year. I'm just one of them. And I'm very humbled to have been selected by that. I know my daughters didn't vote for me on this because they were sitting in the front seat of the truck with the flags in and getting that, one-finger salute and golf balls thrown at us as we were trying to get around the county and raise awareness of the possibility and the hope of the future of this nation to protect our country from what's happening today. So, before I get started, they're going to give me a few minutes here to speak, and I appreciate that. So a friend of mine is the pastor of this church, Trent, and he offered it for this event tonight, out of goodwill. And I'll tell you, Trent and Corey and Alexander, the folks for the church that have been supporting us, you got to give them a big hand. This is an unusual night. All the people who worked on this thing, and I know you're going to thank everybody who worked, but Jennifer and Carrie and Kathy and the people that worked on this to make this happen in an unusual and a very difficult year. But I'll tell you, as you just pointed out just a few moments ago with your eloquent speech, it is so nice to see each other in person and with our faces and our smiles and our happiness and our hope and our future. When my family and I, for those of you who've read the classic J.R.R. Tolkien Lord of the Rings series, or seen the Peter Jackson masterpiece to try to capture that, how many out here understand it, or seen it, watched it, read it? Many of you. For those that didn't, it's an allegory. It's an experience from J.R.R. Tolkien's life, and understanding what happened in the just devastating World War I and what the build-up to World War II. An allegory of feeling a moment in time where there was no hope. When people, many of the small hobbits, they lived their lives unaware of what was happening as this dark cloud of evil began to spread across the land. And the evil would silence voices. They would create hate. They would divide and separate people into the groups. And every year, our family, between Christmas and New Year's, before the day of celebrating our Savior's birth, and that recognition of a new year, we like to remind our families of the courage and the challenges that we face. So we watch that series. We watch it just to remind every year of what it means to sacrifice. And when at one point there is absolutely no hope. And we can feel that today. In our nation, it seems almost overwhelming failure and despair. Because we can't speak. Because tech companies, corporations are silencing our voices. Because they're dividing our nation. I grew up understanding that we judged each other based on our character, that we did not judge each other and divide each other by our race. That was not what America is about. We fought that battle at thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of deaths to change that direction from 1861 to 1865. Those sacrifices began and they continue. And yes, this nation has made mistakes. Yes, we have attempted to correct those mistakes. But we have always pushed forward. And why, I do not understand the division within our own party and our own fundamental beliefs. And we saw this, where leaders in the Republican Party divided our country and divided their party. Because, I'll tell you why, in my view. Because we all want to believe that the people at top are doing the right things for us. That they want to trust the system. But the system is being manipulated by that dark cloud. It is evil. And it is beginning to spread across our nation very rapidly. And in spite of the hope that they're doing such, as Jeff so eloquently said, that they're making such boneheaded mistakes, who would have thought that somebody hiding in the basement that cannot complete a sentence without a failure would be a man that would actually undermine the Constitution would be elected by 80 million votes? Who would have thought that? It happened. Right now, I don't use the two words together. Biden, dot, period, president. I tried very hard not to use that together. Because I worry. I worry much that too many people have put their heads down, that they're afraid to stand up, that the fear, and the COVID is a perfect example of manipulating and using the media and using this technology to change our views, to shape our minds, in order to keep our heads down, to divide us so we don't come together and meet, so we don't plan, so we don't go out and ask those questions. And then being attacked by the media mob, the social media mob. I am afraid that too many people will cower and put their head down and walk along and say, it's not going to happen to me. There's a moment in The Lord of the Rings, in that series, in the movie, where King Theoden, who had just been almost crushed by orcs and by all these evil representative Democrats, coming through the walls, almost completely destroyed. But in the last moment, there's victory. They go back to their castle. They're celebrating. And the people on the other side of the hill are about to be overrun. And the question becomes, after he was almost defeated, almost beaten, destroyed, will you go help your fellow man? And it was a difficult decision. Now, one moment rings true in my mind always. The question is, will you come to their aid? And he pauses after losing many of his people, after total destruction, after not seeing any help from anywhere else. And he's saying so. He pauses and he looks. He says, we fight. We fight. We go forward will take sacrifice. You must find your voice. If it's writing a letter to the editor, if it's talking to your neighbor, if it's going to the Bellingham Herald and say, you better report the other side of this story. Or to the Northern Light right here in Blaine. Or the Linden Tribune. Or what's just waking up that neighbor that says, did you really vote for this? Do you really trust that guy? Is this what you wanted? You wanted your children to not know what their gender is, to say there's a bunch? No, you didn't. We choose life. Be proud of that. Find your voice. Find your courage. Your courage to speak and your courage to stand up. Because if you don't, the long game is that darkness will overcome our nation. It is not happening in a generation. It's happening in a year. Think of what difference has been made since last January, since the last Lincoln Day dinner. This moment in history, generations rarely face it. Our nation, I do not believe, has ever faced it because it's not just an external threat. And it's not just an internal threat. The Civil War was an internal threat. World War II was an external threat. We're fighting an ideology that is overwhelmingly influencing corporations to make decisions on how they want to continue making money in China. And they are willing to sacrifice American principles to do it. They are willing to sacrifice. They are willing to sacrifice you. Facebook doesn't care about you. There are 180 million to 200 million Americans on Facebook. There are 2.6 billion people around the world on Facebook. They can lose 10%. They don't care. But what they care about is expanding that market. And they're willing to sacrifice the fundamental principles of free speech, of religion, of faith, of assembly. And they will control the media. It's not just Facebook. It's Google. It's Coca-Cola. Oh my God, it's Delta Airlines, headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. All too many. The NBA, MLB, the NFL, the things that we value most. So, if our heads stay down and we keep silenced, if we do not stand up and find that courage, we will lose it very soon. It'll be very difficult to come back. But I have fought, I have served all over this world. And the one thing that I will tell you that will survive, those fundamental principles of this nation, life, the ability to live your life without the threat of violence, liberty, the ability to think and believe as you wish without the threat of violence over your head, the pursuit of happiness, the ability to improve your life and your family's life without the threat of violence over your head. Those principles will endure. 40 years of Soviet control, it collapsed. Cambodia, Kampuchea. These things will fail. The question is, how bad does it get before people finally stand up? Find your voice, find your courage, stand up, and most importantly, quit dividing our party and our beliefs and being embarrassed by them. We must have unity. Not everybody will get everything they want. In fact, no one will get everything they want. That's the nature of our lives. But by God, we must stand up and work together. Speak, stand up, work together, unify, and push forward. And we will ensure those principles carry forward. That is our challenge. Let's stand up. Too many of my friends, too many of people that I've served have suffered or died for those principles. We cannot undermine them. We absolutely owe that to them. And we don't have to fight physically. We just have to be strong, steadfast. And when they hate, we smile and wave. When they try to silence you, you laugh and say, no, that's not right. When the teacher tells your children, are you a he, she, or it? See, that's a ridiculous question. Stand up, go forward, and remember, we fight. Thank you.